This is the Silt Verses role-playing game, part one. Now, I do want to say a couple of things here before we begin introductions and stuff. First is that this is still officially a playtest of the game. The game's contents are like 98% done. The game is essentially done, but it's not final yet and it's not published yet. And so this is still strictly a playtest in that sense. Another thing is I have personally never run it. All the playtesting has been done by Gabriel, who is on the call. I've never run it, so there's going to be just a slight more of a learning curve than there would be normally when I'm running a game. Fortunately, we do have the principal writer of the game on the call with us, so we should be okay as far as working through rules stuff. But it's mostly based off my games, so it should be okay, but we'll see how it goes. Another thing is that this is the first time I am running a game with my brand new puppy. She is currently sitting on my lap, napping. I have never run a game with new puppy. This is day 3 of new puppy. And so I may have to just like suddenly leave, or I might seem like I'm looking away a lot. It's got nothing to do with you or how you're role playing or anything like that. It's just me paying attention to the dog. So trust that I'm still listening to you. And I think that is going to do it. Let's go ahead and now do introductions. We'll introduce ourselves first. When I call on you, please say your name, your pronouns, and anything else you would like for people watching the video to know about you and us as well. I'll start though. My name is Jason. I use he, they. I am the publisher or co-publisher and co-creator of the Silt Verses role-playing game, along with Gabriel, who is on the call. I am also the creator of the 2 games from which the Silt Verses role-playing game is derived, Brindlewood Bay and The Between, a game that I know many of us here have, or games that I know many of us here have a lot of experience with. I'm very excited to give this a go. I love the Silt Verses setting and the audio drama that the game is based off of, and I'm really excited to sort of see how this goes in play. Let's go ahead and go over to Gabriel then.
Hi, I'm Gabriel, he, they. As Jason mentioned, I'm the principal writer for the game. And if you're watching this, if it's up, if you haven't heard the show, I would highly, highly recommend you go check it out. It's incredible writing, amazing production, actors, incredible world we're playing in. So it's an absolute delight to get to like play and expand in that space. So very excited to be here.
Agree completely. Let's go over to Chaotic.
I'm Chaotic, he, they. I'm well known for running a lot of The Between. I play in a lot of Jason's games, and I'm very excited. I have not gotten far into the Silt Versus podcast. I've gotten to like episode 3, and that's about it. So like I'm excited to see like more of the setting and how it's gonna transfer over to a role-playing game.
Episode 3 is very salient for our game. Like our game is very much like an episode 3 kind of game for people who are watching this and curious if they want just a diving in point on the show. Thank you so much. Let's go over to Moss.
Hi there. I just, for my background, I just searched up creepy bookstore. So that's what that is. So I'm Moss. I'm a she, they in group of he, theys. I'm a huge fan of the Silt Verses. I love fiction podcasts, but the Silt Verses is my favorite. It's very dear to my heart. I love tabletop role-playing games. I've actually never played one made by the Gauntlet, but I've been playing D&D since I was like 10, and I've played a couple of other indie tabletop role-playing games, and yeah, I'm really excited. So
fabulous. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Let's go over to David.
Hi, my name is David. I use he, they pronouns, a common thing at this table, it seems. I'm best known for running a podcast called Trials of the Apocalypse, where we try different PBTA games and do little one-shot stories. We've played actually both The Between and Brindlewood Bay on that show, and I've also had the pleasure of playing in games that Jason has run for both of those as well. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited to play the Silt Verses today. I'm really interested in the world and lore, but I'm not that acquainted with the show. I've only listened to episodes 3 and 7 as suggested, so I feel like I'm perfectly primed to know nothing, and I'm super excited.
Awesome.
I've said that a few times.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll try my best not to spoil it.
Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't even come up, Moss, because like the game has like no direct connection to the like Faulkner Carpenter story. It's like very, very like it's a different story. Okay, fabulous. All right. Now that we've all introduced ourselves, let's do CATS. CATS is an acronym that stands for Concept, Aim, Tone, and Subject Matter. I like to do CATS to establish some basic expectations for what this game is about and what we're going to be doing during this first session. So this is where we're going to learn a lot about what the game is about, so do pay attention. The concept. The Silt Verses role-playing game is a tabletop role-playing game of folk horror and monstrous divinity, in which a group of indebted custodians are sent into isolated territories to deal with stray gods and terrifying divine manifestations which threaten the nearby community. The custodians investigate these entities and the manifestation of their powers, and will then seek methods to appease them, neutralize them, or otherwise engage the local community to find a solution. The custodians gradually become aware of a looming conspiracy that overshadows their work as a powerful organization seeks to take advantage of them to fulfill its secret agenda. The custodians will ultimately decide how to confront this organization, all the while struggling with their complicated relationship to faith and the gods of their past whose power threatens to consume them. The game's mechanics are based on Apocalypse World and Brindlewood Bay and the Between, but you don't need to know anything about those games before we play. The aim. The aim of the characters in the story is to pursue investigations surrounding these stray gods and powers and come to terms with their complicated past with a particular god, deciding if they will continue on that path and be further changed by the power that god provides. Our aim as players is the same, but also to learn more about these characters' fraught pasts and uncertain futures, as well as to paint a vivid picture of our version of the Silt Verses setting, a responsibility we all share. The aims for today's session are to create and introduce our characters, learn the basics of how the game works by playing it, and then we'll have a debrief at the end. Tone. The tone of the Silt Verses RPG is dark, strange, and unsettling. It presents a world where monstrous horrors are viewed as miraculous and divine, and systemic cruelties are routinely accepted by society. It exaggerates difficult themes of our world by showing them as literal gods, and this converge on the absurd, but this is not intended to become a parody. A little bit of levity or humor from time to time is okay, but we will always strive to return to that dark, gloomy landscape the characters exist in. Subject matter. Cosmic horror, graphic violence, ritual sacrifice, intense body horror, grotesque religious imagery, cults, religious trauma, harm to children and animals, family trauma, government corruption and oppression, police violence, war, and natural disasters are all things that may come up frequently in this game. Let me take a breath. We'll talk about safety tools in just a moment, but in the interest of setting expectations right now, you should know that this game deals with some intense and often dark subject matter. So let's go ahead and talk about safety tools. No game is more important than the people playing it. We're going to paint a dark, unsettling landscape of the Silt Verses setting, but we're going to do it in a way that respects everyone's boundaries of safety and consent. In order to do that, we'll be using 3 safety tools in the Silt Verses RPG: the open door policy, the X card, and lines and veils. The open door policy is very simple. You can leave the game for any reason, and you don't have to explain yourself. Just let us know that you have to go. No one here will ask any questions about it. The X card. In an online call, we have to make a little adjustment here, but basically, the X card is available in case something in the game makes you feel uncomfortable in an unfun way. Just type in X card in the chat or say it on the call, and I will stop play in order to change whatever just happened in the game. I may ask for clarification on what is being X carded, but I will never ask why. We'll resume play once the change is made. Finally, we'll be using lines and veils. Lines are things that we are not going to have in the game, period. Veils are things that we're okay with being in the game, but we prefer not to roleplay them, or we simply want to keep them off screen. Importantly, even though I earlier listed a number of dark subject matters that come up in the Silt Verses RPG, you can still include one or more of those things as part of lines and veils. As I said before, no game is more important than the people playing it. One more thing. During the game, we will treat our group's lines and veils as a living document, meaning you can add to this list later if you need to. We will also make a point of reviewing lines and veils each session. I will start by sharing my personal lines and veils now, and then you can tell us yours on the character keeper. There's a space, there's a tab there to go and mark your lines and veils. But my lines and veils, my line is going to be sexual violence. We're not going to have that in the story at all. And my veil is going to be torture. I am okay with torture being a thing that happens in the story. I just prefer not to roleplay the torture. Does anyone have any question about cats or the safety tools? Okay, then in that case, let's see what's next. And for people who are watching this video, this little bit that I'm doing right now, it's in the rule book. It's scripted in the rule book, so you can just read it and do it as I'm doing it. So, all right, so character creation. Before we begin character creation, I want to share a few more details about the setting. These characters, the custodians, are a group of specialists sent out into the rural territories to investigate and resolve disturbances of stray and feral gods. This is largely thankless work, with little to no resources or guidance provided beyond an initial report and directions. Each custodian has been chosen for this work in part because of their complicated past with gods. The fact that they have an ambivalent stance towards their own faith is viewed as an asset when dealing with the fringe elements of divinity throughout the territories. Each member of the group has their own reasons for joining the custodians, though it is rarely by choice. They are all under contract and might face debt, punishment, or consequences far worse should they fail to complete their assignments. Finally, each custodian has a complicated past with a particular god. They have stepped away from their faith and will have to choose if they continue along that path and become changed by the powers their god awakens in them. Another thing to know is that these characters are to remain mysterious. This is very important. We should avoid talking about their pasts, both in and out of character, unless we are prompted to do so by the game's rules. The reason we do that is because we want to learn about these characters as we play. It's just like listening to the Silt Verses audio drama or watching a good TV show. We don't learn everything about the characters all at once. That information is given to us in pieces at dramatically impactful moments in the story, often through flashbacks and meaningful conversations between characters. With all that said, I am going to do a quick summary of each faith sheet. Actually, I'm going to skip this bit because we've already looked at all the options. But normally here in the introduction, the 6 starter faith sheets, the keeper would read a little description of each of them. We're going to skip that part though. So now we're going to go ahead and make characters. We are not going to make characters on the call, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. And if you're watching the video, we'll see you in just a sec. Okay, we are back. Now that you've all made your characters, we're going to introduce them. Now, this is a really simple introduction. We're going to go around the table and everyone will introduce their character by name, their style choices, and their personal ritual. And that's it. Don't tell us anything else. Actually, that's not totally true. If you want, you can also tell us what your starting move does on your faith sheet, but you can also save that for when we're playing. You can show us then. It's up to you. I will remind you that we should definitely avoid sharing any details about your character's backstory at this time. So, and then after we're done with that, we're going to go around again and talk about the characters in more detail. But first, let's just do the basics. Name, style, and personal ritual. I'm going to go in reverse order of the sheet. So let's check in with Gabriel and his character, Mercer Oaks, a follower of the Trawler Man. Give us the basics, Gabriel.
So Mercer Oaks is a follower of the Trawler Man. He has prayer mark tattoos, a hooded patrol cloak, and rugged hiking boots, good for wading into the mud. His personal ritual is Scrimshaw. And the starting move is Twin Mouths, which basically means he switches between these two conditions where, like the Trawler Man, if he has the mouth devouring, he can consume things and use that for certain abilities. And when he switches it to the mouth returning, he spews up things. So lovely.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. Fabulous. Thank you. Let's go over to David and Bastion Ward.
Yeah. Bastion Ward, pronouns he, him, is a follower of the Saint Electric. His character style is spectacles, engineer's gloves, and a utility vest. I'm imagining very high-vis engineer sort of style. And the personal ritual he has is reciting poetry.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's go over to Chaotic and Theo Solomon.
My character's name is Theo Solomon, he, they pronouns. He has a floral button-down shirt, faded sneakers, and a prayer mark tattoo. His personal ritual is wood carving, and as most people can see on the character sheet, my main move gives me additional slots for conditions. So instead of the normal 3, I get 5. But however, it's restricted on how I can remove those conditions. So it's going to be really interesting to see that in play.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And let's go check in with Moss and Sybil Kumar.
So my character is Sybil, and they, she, and her style is scholar satchel, iconographic jewelry, hand stitched leathers, and her personal ritual is bookbinding. Specifically, she's got like a really big notebook where she writes everything down, and she has to like stitch in pages, and it's like huge and look like falling apart. So her ritual is to like just add more pages and take more notes.
I love it. Thank you.
And as for the starting move, I was actually just reading it. I haven't like gone over it super thoroughly, but I'm pretty sure it's about like the sacred ink, and I can use that for beneficial stuff. And I make it from, wait, actually I don't know if I should tell you. Well, I mean, it's on my sheet.
It's up to you.
Okay.
You can. Yeah, it's up to you. It's totally whether if you want to share it or not. It's up to you.
You know, I'll keep it secret. I'm sure it'll come up, or you could just look at my sheet. But
yeah, exactly.
It's supposed to be secret.
yeah, it's totally up to you. So
because within canon, it's supposed to be secret, I think. So
yeah. Okie doke. With all that said, now we're going to go around again, and I am going to read aloud the color text at the top of your faith sheet. Now, if we were playing face to face, this would be on a sheet written up there, and normally it would be in the character keeper as well, but since this is an ad hoc character keeper that we're using, it's not on there yet. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to copy and paste the text and put it in chat for each of you so that you can read along with me while I'm reading your flavor text out loud. As I'm doing this, everyone pay really close attention, because you are then going to name one object or piece of equipment that you think that custodian has on their personal altar. It can be anything you think would be cool. The person who's the custodian in question can ask for a revision or veto an idea, but assuming that they go along with it, you'll just note that in the section of your character keeper called the altar. This is functionally your equipment list, because if anything is in your altar that you like, if you could conceivably have it on your person, then you do. That's sort of the idea. So with all that said, we're going to start with the Trawler Man, with Mercer Oaks, the follower of the Trawler Man. Let me grab that flavor text really quickly and paste it into the chat. And then I'll pop that here so everybody can follow along. The Trawler Man, sculptor of tide and flesh, father in the water, the mouth devouring and the mouth returning. For centuries, worshippers of the Trawler Man, the so-called parish of tide and flesh, practiced their faith up and down the waters of the White Gull River, making sacrifices to their god that walks beneath the tides. While the faith has been outlawed and its followers have been wiped out or forced into hiding, some still practice the old ways in secret. As a child of the water, you feel its presence no matter where you go. The winding river is unpredictable, sometimes flooding its banks to swallow everything in reach, at other times receding to leave strange gifts poking from the mud. But deep down, you know that the river will one day rise and reclaim the settlements that intrude on its borders, heralding a wondrous new kingdom of life reshaped in Silt. Now, with all of that said, and everything we know about Mercer Oaks up to this point, which to be fair is not much, everyone else, including myself, gets to say one thing we think can be found on Mercer's personal altar. What is your personal altar, Mercer?
It's the rusted tackle box with a hidden compartment.
Oh, nice. Okay, so your altar is it's a fishing tackle box. Nice, good. I love it. All right, well, so Who has an idea?
The Silt Verses, like the. I don't know if you've listened. I listened to the podcast. I haven't kept track, but
Like the actual copy of the book,
Silt
the
Verses.
Silt Verses.
Oh,
Yeah.
copy, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say you have a small glass jar with holes punched in the top with tons of tiny little angels in it. Angels of the Trawler Man are little crabs, little baby crabs.
A little.
Perfect. I love it. Yeah, good.
A tackle box needs tackle, of course. So you'll have like just a bunch of like bits and bobs of like lures and whatnot in there.
See, I was thinking along those lines. I think maybe you have a bait box. Only instead of having like worms or other small critters, it's like little bits of people or animal, fingers, eyes, that sort of thing.
Make little
Fantastic.
offerings in a pinch.
Mercer, are you okay with all that?
Yeah, that's fun. I like it.
All right. Fantastic. Go ahead and note everything on your altar, and then we will keep going. Let's go to Bastion Ward, a follower of the Saint Electric. Let me grab my text. Bastion Ward, a follower of the Saint Electric. The Saint Electric, also known as the Maiden of the Caged Sun, Madam Light, the Blazing Martyr, the Neon Messiah. Easily the most well-known deity across the peninsula. Her prayer stamps appear on every household appliance and piece of industrial machinery. The saint's iconography depicts a silhouetted woman wreathed in flame, caught within the grid bars of an electrical circuit. Everyone knows of her, but most forget her past as an ancient fire deity, fueled by mass sacrifice during drawn-out wars which transformed entire towns into smoldering, immortal charcoal saints. The saints' sacrifices are carried out more discreetly now, in wind farms and power plants far from the public eye. You served the Saint Electric once. After enduring the agonizing blessing of her touch, you gained miraculous abilities as a conduit of her sacred currents. Your path forward is less certain now, but she is never far from you, speaking through the radio, humming through cables underground, illuminating entire cities with her radiance. There's a lot there. But what do we think can be found in your personal altar? What is your personal altar, Mercer? Or Bastion, rather, sorry.
Bastion's personal altar is a portable generator bristling with various outlets, ports, and cables. We're going to go out to the sticks. I got to have a generator on me.
I love it. What do we think?
I think you have several grounding wires with that have like little etchings into them, very tiny.
I think you have like a multi-tool, a little like Swiss Army knife with various wrenches and screwdrivers and pliers and such.
I think you have a pair of boots that have had the rubber replaced with something more conductive.
Oh God, I have to think of something. I don't know. I don't know. All your ideas are so good. I don't.
The simplest answer is often the best answer. There's no pressure.
I think like a lighter, but one of those like. Have you seen those like cool lighters that have like the blue flame? I forget what they're called.
Oh yeah, they're like there's a green and blue ones. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
They're like I'll look it up.
It can almost be like a welding type of lighter.
Yeah, like a torch lighter.
Fantastic.
Like a Yeah, it's a butane lighter.
Bastion, are you cool with all those offerings?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Fabulous. Then let's go over to Theo, follower of the Pox Martyr. All right, let's see here. Okay, Theo Solomon, follower of the Pox Martyr. The Pox Martyr, also known as the Wretchman, Brother Boyle and Sister Sore, and It Should Have Been Me. Monks of the Wretchman's order practice a radical form of self-sacrifice by ritually transferring the ailments of others into their own bodies. These so-called pox monks can be found throughout the territories, but especially in rural places without hospitals or access to modern medicine. By many accounts, faith alone can heal, and who could question the conviction of a healer willing to take on the worst ailments themselves? You, Theo, were one of them once, but try as you might, you could never heal all of the hurt. Despite years of practice, learning to bear the suffering of others so that they would live a bit longer, you could not fully accept the work as a blessing. No matter how fierce the fire of your courage, the pain never ends. And yet, without you, who else would step up? For better or worse, this cruel and twisted world still needs you. Theo, what is your personal altar?
Well, my personal altar is an antique doctor's briefcase with musty leather and brass clasps.
I love it. And everybody else gets to make an offering to your altar. I like saying it that way. It's flavorful.
I think Theo has a jar with a poultice that numbs pain.
I'm gonna say you have some small prosthetics.
Like a needle and thread for stitching wounds.
You have a syringe that's half full of a saint's blood. You don't know from what, maybe.
I love it. Theo, you good with all that? Fabulous. And now let's go to Sybil Kumar, a follower of the Waxen Scrivener. This is the one faith sheet I wrote. Gabriel wrote the others, but this is the one that I wrote. So hopefully it comes off okay. Let me go grab my text. The Waxen Scrivener. It's my favorite god in the settings of the ones that I know.
Yeah, actually, fun fact, I have a patron, so I got the lore book. There used to be like a children's show about the Waxen Scrivener.
Oh, nice. I love it. It's great.
A little cartoon beetle, which I find quite charming. Sybil is in favor of bringing that.
All right, here we go. Sybil Kumar, follower of the Waxen Scrivener, also known as the Eight-Limbed Scrivener, the Black Beetle of Knowing and Forgetting, and the Endless Ink Well. Followers of the Waxen Scrivener devote their lives to the recording of knowledge, scribbling down every keen insight, every tantalizing observation onto sheets of parchment or in old journals, and then abandoning it. They leave their wealth of pages to rot in the back rooms of old verminous bookshops and dank ancestral libraries. Some even cultivate colonies of rats, bookworms, and paperflies for the purpose of destroying the pages. The sacred act is putting down pen to paper. That's the sacrifice the Scrivener requires. And knowledge, like skin, must be shed to be renewed. Sybil, what is your altar?
So it's a desk that I've converted into a portable bookbinding studio.
Fabulous. And what do we suppose can be found at the offerings?
Oh, but by the way, because of my move, I already have rolls of parchment, empty journal, and quills. So
Fabulous. Yeah, I like the ones that give you a bunch to start. You can tell I wrote that one. I like moves that give you a bunch of items.
I think you have just this collection of stamps from all over the world.
that's good.
I'm going to say you have like a stack of letters and correspondence, but you have purposely scratched out who wrote them and who they were addressed to. So it's just letters with correspondence with no apparent sender or receiver.
I think you have a larger leather-bound book that it's the kind that has a strap running around with a lock on it, and you've never opened it, or at least you haven't yet, but you have it in your possession.
All right, that sounds good.
And
I
Gabriel,
think
do
you
have
have
nothing?
you have a sealed vial of I guess termites. I'm thinking of insects that would eat things. But it's like enough if you were to open it, you could start a colony with it.
Mm-hmm. That'll be useful for my termite attacks. They'll never see it coming.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts up to this point before we keep going?
Oh, actually, could you throw down in the chat as well the alternate names for the gods?
Oh, yeah, I can definitely do that when I'm on
I can
break.
paste it for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Just for my own role play.
No, for sure. Yeah. Let's see here. And like I said, this will all be in the final version of everything. Okay, let's keep going then. All right. So now that we've met the characters, we are ready to play. We're going to take a break, a little bit longer than normal because I have Puppy to deal with. We're going to take a 15-minute break. When we get back, I will introduce the first assignment and we will begin playing. We just dive right into play. But let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. So I will see you all in 15. Okay, we are back from our break. Let's keep going with our guided session 1 procedure. Now, we have taken a look at lines and veils and we've sorted them all out off recording. So instead, I now want to talk about, I think this is important, especially because we have a group with mixed experience in terms of both the game system and the setting. I want to tell you that even though this is a game set in the world of the Silt Verses, we aren't trying to recreate the story of the show. That's very important. We'll do our best to recreate the setting, but we'll also be telling our own story, which may be different from the show, and that's okay. I'd also like to point out that in this setting, things like race, nationality, gender, sexuality, disability, and neurodivergence are not a social barrier. As with the characters portrayed in the Silt Verses audio drama, the source of conflict for our characters comes from their complicated relationship to faith, their personal history with terrifying gods, and the power structures they find themselves caught in, but not necessarily from facing any sort of discrimination based on their identities. Another thing I want to do before we begin the assignment is, since we're using this character keeper, I want to just do a quick kind of tour of the character keeper, just a few little elements that you'll want to be aware of. So the whole top part of it is just the character creation stuff. The end of session questions, those are really important because basically you want to try to have answered yes to these questions by the end of the session. Two of the prompts, the ones that you choose, are very role play forward. So just try to, as best you can, try to make that thing happen in a scene, role play towards that in a scene. It's okay if it's like not really precise. Like we're pretty forgiving as far as like whether we think you're getting credit for it or not. A couple of them you don't have a ton of control over, like did you complete an assignment or not? I mean, do your best, but you're very likely not going to complete assignment today, right? But you do get experience for that. And then another one is, did you engage with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation? That's another thing that you may have to make a decision about whether you want to do that or not, depending on whether it feels safe or not. Or if you want to lean right into danger, you can definitely do that. But in any case, end of session questions, we want to try to answer yes to as many of those as possible by the end of the session so that you can mark experience on the XP track. Once you get all 6 boxes marked, you get an advancement. The advancements are listed below that. And then we have a very special section of the character keeper. It's divided up into 2. One's called the verse of history, and the other part is the verse of prophecy. This is the part of the character sheet where we really get to learn about your character. So what I mentioned at the top about not talking about your character's backstory, the reason why we don't want you to do that is because you're going to talk about your character's backstory when the verse of history comes up. You're going to tell us about your complicated relationship to faith when the verse of prophecy comes up, right? So those, be thinking about those things, like in between sessions, read through that stuff and start thinking about what it means for your character, because this is really how you're going to present your character to us over the course of the next few weeks. They also serve a really mechanical function. So in this game, the way it kind of works in this game is you're going to do die rolls, and sometimes really bad things are going to happen, right? Like the consequences of a die roll might be that you just straight up get killed, right? Like we might have talked about that before dice hit the table. You roll poorly and your character is dead, but they're not necessarily dead. You can mark the verse of history or the verse of prophecy in order to get a do-over. So essentially, we would take your die result and we would bump it up one result, and then that would be the new result. We still narrate the old result because it's cool to see your character facing adversity, but it's almost like if you imagine like an old choose your own adventure book. Like sometimes when you're reading those choose your own adventure books, you put your thumb on the page before you make your choice so that if you pick a bad one, you can go back and do the better one. It's that kind of thing. The verse of history and the verse of prophecy give us basically different timelines, different outcomes, right? So sometimes things are going to seem really difficult and challenging and punitive, but they're not, because you always have the verse of history and the verse of prophecy to protect you. That's another thing too I want to really point out, because in a lot of other role-playing games, there's a real danger of like splitting the party, so to speak, or you might feel defensive, like you don't want to do something dangerous. In this game, there's literally no reason not to do that or to do that, because in this game, you are in full control of whether your character lives or dies because of the verse of history and the verse of prophecy. So I can endanger your characters or put things that are very scary and tantalizing out there. You should feel totally confident as a player pushing towards that danger, because practically speaking, your character can't be killed until you're ready for them to be killed as a player. You have a lot of power as a player. So that's another thing to be mindful of. It's very different from a lot of role-playing games. A lot of role-playing games encourage like defensive play. That is not what this is. This game wants you to dive deep and go into the dark places, right? And also you can split up as well. There's no reason to stay together, right? Unless you just want to, because it'd be fun. Then you have your starting move, then your altar, and a section for notes. As I noted before, your altar is kind of essentially a character equipment list. Whenever you are getting ready to do a move, if you can work something from your altar into your description of what you're doing, you get a bonus on your die roll for doing that. I need to go open my event, 1 second. So that is the character keeper. And now let's present the assignment. Are there any other questions before we dive right into play? Okay. Then we'll go ahead and present the assignment. And this is the first of multiple assignments that will happen while we're over the course of the next few weeks as we're playing. Let's go find it here. Hungering Roots. All right. Our assignment is called The Hungering Roots. Now, this information I'm going to tell you, I'll eventually transfer over to that assignments tab. For now, just pay attention. The Hungering Roots. The custodians are sent to investigate reports of unlicensed sacrifices taking place in a warehouse east of Glottage. It seems that some ambitious producer of psychotropic tea ingredients has managed to imprison a harvest god in an indoor growing facility. Using a combination of hydroponics, automated lighting, and experimental prayer marks, they have found a way to continuously cycle a harvest ritual and maximize their production to vastly outpace their government-regulated competitors. But this god they have bound is accustomed to the domain of field and meadow, of rituals invoking the sun and moon instead of artificial lights and humidity-controlled rooms. It is growing rapidly and demanding greater sacrifices. I'm now going to direct the following to the custodian who grew up in the most rural or wild area. Of the four of you, who do we suppose that is?
I was originally imagining Bastion as being from like a small town, but not necessarily full rural homestead or anything. I don't know about other characters.
My guess is this is probably Mercer because of the Trawler Man, but I could be wrong. Possibly the
Yeah.
Pox Murder.
If everyone wants to make a case for theirs, go for it.
I think Sybil would probably be from like a small city.
What do you think, Chaotic?
Like, I'm fine with it either way. That because I imagine like Theo, even though he has like a fascination with more grouped in city populations, because that's where a lot of like disease, illness, where people get sick are at. Like he himself was pretty much isolated from that growing up. So
Okay, then. Sounds like maybe, oh, well then let's make a decision. I'm just gonna make a decision. I'm gonna say Mercer.
Cool.
Mercer. So, this harvest god, how do you know that such an entity will eventually find a way to break free and threaten the surrounding neighborhood?
Being a follower of the Trawler Man, or maybe a former one, Mercer has just seen how powerful nature can be and how, we have no control over its whims. That's why we make sacrifices to these gods, to hopefully not be the thing that is eaten next by them. And when we try to control nature and contain it, it will remind us of that. The more we try to contain gods, the more they will push back. And as everyone knows in this world, a god needs to feed. So it's not possible to contain a god for very long.
Very interesting. Now, the way this game works is we have questions and opportunities. You're going to be conducting investigations and gathering clues, which is a game currency. You'll then use those clues to build basically a theory that will help you answer one of the questions. Once you have successfully answered the question, you then get to pursue its associated opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and read the questions and opportunities to you now. The first question is, how is the harvest god most vulnerable? This has a complexity of 4. We'll discuss complexity later. And the opportunity is, it allows you to resolve the assignment by destroying or neutralizing this dangerous entity so it cannot grow back. The second question, what resources does this harvest god offer if appeased? It's a complexity 6 question. It allows you to resolve the assignment by working with the growers to adapt their methods and establish a more sustainable operation that does not threaten the community. And the third question, where can this harvest god be safely transplanted? It's a complexity 8. It allows you to resolve the assignment by breaking the god from its confines, allowing it to grow freely, and showing the local residents how to coexist with it. If you do this approach, it unlocks a brand new move for you all called the Mark of Quickening. We'll talk about the move later if you unlock it, but that is a thing that's available. Now, the complexity represents the sort of overall difficulty of the question, and you can pursue any of the 3 questions, and you don't have to decide in the beginning. You can decide once you've gathered enough clues, you can decide which question you want to answer. But the simpler complexity questions usually have the more challenging resolution. So while it's easier to determine how is the harvest god most vulnerable, it's the harder resolution because you're going to have to actually fight the harvest god essentially in order to resolve it. If you go with the more complex questions, you actually you have a slightly less dangerous resolution because it's more about community building and appeasement rather than combat, right? So it's just a choice that you'll have to make whenever the time comes. The way this game works is these questions don't have canonical solutions. So like the games that it's based off of, Brindlewood Bay and The Between, the mystery here, the investigation here, I don't know the answer. The answer will be determined by all of you. You're going to gather clues, and then you are going to, based off the clues you have, you're going to come up with a case. Basically, you're going to come up with an answer. You're going to come up with what you think the answer is, what you think the situation is, and then you're going to roll some dice. The complexity and the number of clues you use in your answer determines how that dice roll goes. But you'll roll some dice to see if you're correct, and if you're correct, you then get to pursue the opportunity. So that's sort of how that part of the game works. So all these questions, I don't know the answer. We're going to find out the answer together. This mystery, or assignment rather, also has its own verse. So you remember that verse of the verse of history and the verse of prophecy on your character sheet? There's also a verse here available called the verse of the inevitable harvest. It can only be chosen once, and whoever chooses it, each custodian then describes a hope or dream they have of someday living in abundance with all their needs met. So that is your assignment. We start with, there's basically 2 phases of play in this game. The first phase of play is called the investigation phase, and that will be the rest of this session and probably a good part of next session as well. And then we have the journey phase. In the Silt Verses audio drama, a big part of the story is watching the characters travel from place to place. They travel from location to location. They experience the local way that people worship, the local sort of customs and traditions. Sometimes they interact with them, but often they don't. It's just something we see. We do that here in this game as well. You can have multiple active assignments, and whenever you travel to an assignment from another assignment, then you do what's called the journey phase, and we get to see a little bit of the landscape. The journey phase is also an opportunity for your characters to have intimate moments with each other. Just like if you've seen the show or if you've listened to the podcast, you know there's that early on in the series is that really great moment at that one restaurant, the Chitlin God restaurant, where Carpenter and Faulkner are kind of like, you know, they're kind of unloading on each other, right? They're kind of getting to know each other a little bit. They're sort of talking about the past. They're still kind of figuring each other out a little bit at that point. You get to have scenes like that in this game. It's your opportunity to sort of connect up with another character. And that's also how you ultimately clear conditions. We'll talk about conditions when they come up in the game, but so journey phase and investigation phase, but we start right now in the investigation phase. So we just get started straight away in this little sort of neighborhood where this warehouse is, this little place east of Glottage. I'm gonna give you a few leads to sort of get going here. I think the central part of this place where people live is a series of apartment buildings, these crumbling tenements. There is the warehouse itself, of course, where they're growing this psychotropic tea and as well. There's also some associated places, which we can talk about as you get a little more into it. But at the start, I think basically the tenements and the warehouse itself is sort of where you know to get going, to figure out what to do about this harvest god that is going to get out of control if the situation doesn't get under control. So what I want to do is go around the table and ask everyone what they're interested in doing. At this point, don't worry too much about what's written on your character sheet. Don't worry about the moves. We are just having the conversation at this point. Just think about what your character might be interested in doing, and we'll figure out what the game looks like at that point. But let's go around the table. I'm going to go in reverse order again on the sheet. Let's start with Mercer. What are you interested in doing to get started here?
Mercer is going to look for water, basically. If there is, irrigation, if there's a water tank for growing, because that's when I can speak most directly with the trawler man.
Oh yeah, interesting. Okay, I like that. We'll figure out what that looks like in a bit. Bastion, how do you want to begin?
I think Bastion's interested in speaking with the people managing the warehouse.
Okay.
Specifically, they've got this hydroponic setup and these artificial lights. Clearly, then, if they have these artificial lights, the Saint Electric is involved. So I think he wants to take a closer look at that.
Okay, I love that. That's great. Theo, what do you want to do?
I am going to go to the tenement house, the apartments, knocking on doors, seeing like how people are, any sort of strangeness they have seen as of late.
Okay, I'm into that. And Sybil, what do you want to do?
I want to talk to the people running the factory and basically try and find out as much about this god as possible, and maybe cross-reference it with some research on other
good.
harvest deities
I love it.
have in my books.
I love it. I love it. I think you might have even been doing that already, right? Like, because presumably you all had to travel here, One really fruitful, so to speak, avenue of investigation is to look into any books or archives or records that you have available to you, right? So I think if you want to just kick off with that, Sybil, I think you can do that right away. And then maybe you'll learn something that will give you a natural follow-up from there. But I think we're going to go ahead and trigger one of the moves here, if that sounds good to you.
All right.
If you want to find that doc that I shared at the top of the chat, that has the core moves in it. And this move that we're doing is called the information move. When you search for a clue, conduct research, or otherwise gather information, which is what you're doing, describe how you're doing so, and roll with an appropriate ability. You've already kind of described how you're doing so, but if you want to go a little deeper on that, you can.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna. Is this like on the way there? Are we
Can
talking?
be. Yeah.
Or...
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna be like reading up on harvest gods and maybe also stuff relevant to like psychotropic teas, and try and compare it to what we know about this god here.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So, and are you specifically using any? Like, I assume you're just kind of using some books you have on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Some books you have not yet destroyed, some knowledge you have not yet erased. I love it. So we're going to do the information move. I think the stat that you're rolling with or the ability is probably insight. I think that makes the most sense because it's sort of a research-oriented thing. So you're going to need 2 6-sided dice. Go ahead and roll 2 6-sided dice and add your insight score.
Okay. Do I get a point because I'm using stuff from my altar?
What specifically are you going to mark from your altar?
Oh, I guess I don't actually have books.
Yeah,
well,
you probably have some just because you have them, but they're not like
Yeah.
mechanically significant, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Well,
unless you want to open that locked book.
yeah. That's it's a special secret. Okay. Yeah. So I guess that wouldn't count.
Yeah.
All right. So I got a 9.
Okay, and then add your insight to it.
Yeah, that's with the insight.
Okay,
added.
great. So let's keep reading the move. It says, on a hit, which is a 7+, you find a clue. I'll tell you what the clue is. On a 7 to 9, there's a complication, either with the clue itself or a complication you encounter while searching. I'll tell you what the complication is. I'm going to take a look at my clue list in just a moment. I think before I do that, though, I want to check in with the other characters. So Sybil's been doing research in the car on the way up. That's actually a really good question. Assuming that do you all come in different vehicles, in one vehicle? What do we think?
I think it's kind of interesting if we're all traveling together, but
Yeah, like I definitely
Yeah, I
feel
agree.
like that's the more interesting of the thing. I think we have like
Like a van of some kind.
yeah, I think we
Like a
have just
van.
like a big white van.
That doesn't stand out at all.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. Great. Big white van. I'm into that. That sounds good. So Sybil's been doing book research on the way. I think you're all you can probably pull up. I think the warehouse is probably like located very close by these tenements, right? So everything is within easy walking distance once you pull up to either place. Parking at the tenements will be
Walkable
fine.
cities.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Walkable and green in this case. You can park at the tenements. I think let's talk about the tenements a little bit before we keep going. So, sorry, I gotta find my. So the tenements are these teetering apartment buildings linked by rusty fire escapes and clotheslines. There are abandoned vehicles and construction materials littering the alleyways, and weeds stretch tall from the cracked sidewalks. Let's go ahead and paint the scene. It's a question I pose to you all to basically, as you answer it, we learn something about this place, right? So the question I have that everybody will answer is, what innovations of the locals here help them to survive in this kind of hostile, rundown environment?
So there are parts of the alleys where there's like industrial waste or just broken glass, just places you couldn't walk. And they have managed to connect like ladders over the alley, like lashed together from some of those fire escapes, even maybe some cables to make like a functional rope bridge between apartments.
I think there has been in recent years some more community development programs, and for the most part that's sort of stuff that remains unseen. But like as we're like traveling into the apartment building, I think there's like this little like uh one of those community library little like signs of just like take a book, give a book sort of types of deals of like
Ooh. So I think that they have like some empty lots that there's sort of been fights over whether to build stuff there or turn it into like a community garden, and eventually the community garden people won out, and so there's a nice little garden.
I think there's apparatus on some of the roofs to collect rainwater. I think because of the industry in the area, a lot of local sources that they might have access to are not necessarily the most drinkable. And so there's a very like bootleg filtration system on the guttering for the tenement buildings that's then collected in a tank, and everybody can take from the cleaner water than they might have access to otherwise.
Also, can I say that Sybil just takes a book from the free library and leaves like a creepy rotting book there?
Yeah, I love it. Give a book, take a book, destroy a book, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Sybil, let's talk about your research that you were able to do.
Okay.
So I owe you a clue, but there's going to be a complication on the clue. I think what you're going to learn, you come across a lot of writing about a god called the Verdant Mother. And the clue is, according to your research, the Verdant Mother sent her seedlings far and wide in the land. And those seedlings ended up being their own little local plant and harvest gods. And so that's your first clue. There is a complication here, however, though. The complication is, as you pull in on the side of one of the tenements, spray painted graffiti says, "We reject the Verdant Mother." It is spray painted on the side of the building. Now, what does any of this mean? Who knows? You're going to give it meaning later. But if somebody wants to go ahead and write the clue down on the assignment tab, that will be great. The clue being,
Okay, I'll put it down.
Yeah.
Or I'm actually not sure where I'm supposed to put it down.
So if you go to the assignments tab and then Hungering Roots and scroll down, there's clues section there.
Okay, sure.
And you can write as much or as little information as you want, is just to note it there. While Sybil's doing that, let's check in with everybody else. So, Theo, you said you were going to straight away go try to talk to some of the people who live here, right? Theo?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what's your approach here? What do you do?
I think I'm going to the main building and just start knocking on doors, trying to like get people to answer and trying to engage in somewhat friendly conversation. Like, oh hi, well, we're sort of with the people running the factory, and we're just trying to do some community outreach. We're trying to make sure like everything's all right. Any sort of like unusual disturbances as of late, just please note, and we can do
Problem number one. Problem number one.
They don't like that.
No one's answering their door.
Oh, no.
It is one of those places where people, if you knock on their door, they like turn the lights out and they like go, they like pretend like they're not home, but there are obviously people there. So my question for you, Theo, and this might trigger a move, my question for you is, what do you do to get anyone to like come out and talk to you?
Oh, man.
You be thinking
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Tell them that by answering this quick survey, you'll be entered in a raffle to win.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I like it. Yeah,
I like that as well. I think in addition to me knocking on the door, I just imagine in my head that there is like this little mail slots like in front of like on people's doors. So I think because Sybil has been traveling with us, I think we do have like a decent supply of like paper and whatnot. I've been writing little notes of just like, here's some contact information, slip it in. Maybe they'll get back to me at some point. Who knows?
So pretending like it's a sweepstakes or a contest, it sounds like a good move. I think this is going to trigger the veiled move. Now, the veiled move is our sort of catch-all move for doing things in the game that are risky or could fail. So the veiled move says, when you do something risky or face something you fear, in this case, you're doing something risky, name what you're afraid will happen if you fail.
I think I'm afraid that I'm just going to waste a bunch of time and no one's going to answer me.
Very good. So now you're going to roll with an appropriate ability. I think because you're essentially lying, I mean, not essentially lying, you're definitely lying here. I think that this is probably going to be focus. So go ahead and roll with focus. And if you think you can work one of your items into it, please do.
Probably not, because they're all physical items that require a human body or
Fair enough.
some other type of body.
So roll 2d6 plus focus.
Okay. Jason knows this from the other day. I was rolling terribly. My luck has turned around and I've rolled double sixes,
Oh,
so
nice.
12.
Good. Nice. Good. So let's read the move. Let's keep reading the move. The move says, on a 10 plus, you do what you intended. Describe what it looks like. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Mhm.
On a 12 plus, you do what you intended, and I will tell you some extra benefit or advantage you receive. Describe what it looks like. The extra benefit or the advantage you're going to receive is the first person you talk to is extremely leery of the work going on at the warehouse, so they are ready to talk. You're not gonna have to like work them too hard. But go ahead and just think about that moment when this plan works. I want you to narrate that when we come back. Let's check in with Mercer and Bastion. So Mercer and Bastion, remind me what you were going to do, Bastion.
Bastion wants to speak with whoever's in charge of the hydroponic and
Oh,
lighting
okay, yeah.
systems.
Yeah, good. So you're going to head over to the warehouse then.
Mhm.
Sounds good. And Mercer?
Mercer's going to look around the warehouse just to see if there's like sources of water he can mess around
That's
with.
right. That's right. Let's go ahead and talk about the warehouse then. It's nearby. There's probably like a series of sidewalks that connect the tenements to this warehouse where presumably people, in past days they would live and work all in the same place. Of course, these sidewalks are long crumbling and they have a suspicious amount of roots and plants bursting up through the cement. Just something to be mindful of. But let's talk about the warehouse a little bit. So the warehouse exterior, there are 3 stories of weathered concrete layered in graffiti and vines, surrounded by a chain link fence. Notably, the gutters and windows have been repaired. You can see wildflowers peeking from the layer of weeds along the roof. Let's paint the scene, everyone. This kind of speaks to what I just said a second ago. What was this building originally used for? What efforts have been made to conceal its current purpose?
I think at one point, even though like this is a small town place, I think there used to be like a circuit mall at one point. Uh, and I think one of the ways it got concealed it was like, oh, well, it's the circuit mall wasn't doing too well. We're like in the middle of nowhere. No one's really doing this, so it just shut down. And then like we'll just build a warehouse out here. It's fine. They have like lots of trucks coming in and out, but it's like all stuff that has been like the labels have been on like the side of the truck has been changed to like hide like what they're actually transporting.
Which is lots of illicitly grown psychotropic materials.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Everybody else gets to say as well.
I think maybe one aspect of that too is that a section, maybe one of the entrances just labels it as like a junkyard, like this is just scrap metal or garbage disposal or something. So it's not very enticing to look at.
I think all of the lowest level doors and windows, I think all of the doors have no windows, and all of the windows have maybe they were just painted black on the inside, something that prevents any seeing in.
I love it. Anything to add, Moss?
I was thinking maybe like the food court was like converted into like a cafeteria for the workers.
Okay, nice. Good. I love it. So we have this converted mall then where this is just a warehouse, but what it really is it's just a series of warehouses. It's an industrial park, but you know what it actually is. They're doing all this weird growing stuff here. They've got this harvest god bound and working for them to produce far beyond what they're legally allowed to produce in terms of plant material, specialized plant material. We'll start with Mercer. Mercer, I think, looking for the water sources. Obviously, they're going to have a water source to feed this place for the hydroponics. There might also be a lot of just standing water as well. Give me a little bit more description of like how you're looking through the water sources or finding them or what you're doing.
I think Mercer's just kind of like strolling off alone from the group, and if there's like an alley that might go around the back of the building, just trying to avoid notice and just but creep directly into any gaps between buildings. You can just kind of poke around and see what might be hidden out of view.
Let's do the information move, and let's do it with focus.
Right. That's a 6.
A 6. A 6 is a miss. A miss is not defined, but what happens in this game is when you roll 6 minus, you get a miss. And unless the move says what happens, I get to say what happens. I will do what's called a keeper reaction, and it won't ever, on an information move, it won't be as severe as it normally could be. It won't be quite as bad, but it still may not be great. Mercer, the way you've described it is you are kind of like squeezing into tight places, looking for the way the water flows, maybe looking for like, maybe following drainage pipes, that kind of thing, right? You've managed to find yourself quite isolated. Slipping away from the group was maybe not the best idea. Maybe, who knows, maybe you always do this. I guess we'll find out as we play. But you come around a corner and you come across a person on their knees, facing away from you. They have a handful of rich, loamy, black soil in their hands. And they are sifting through it. They're letting the dirt fall through their fingers. And then it goes for another scoop. And this man, whose clothing is very, very tattered, looks like he hasn't bathed in a good long while. Smells like it too. He's sifting this dirt through his fingers, and he says, "A god must feed. Yes, 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 a god must feed. But a god's followers must also feed, must they not? Of course they must. This is what we are taught. This is what we know. This is what we... A god must feed, and the faithful must feed as well. It is a cycle of consumption." And they dig through the dirt again. And he says, "Ah, there you are. A little offering. An offering from the bountiful one." And he pulls out a long, wriggling grub. He says, "The faithful must feed." And he just sucks it up. And
He's so real.
you can hear the crunching of the exoskeleton of the worm in his mouth. And he just mutters, "Oh, thank you, my lord. Thank you." And then he looks up and sees you and says, "Another offering?" Let's cut over to Bastion. Bastion, sounds like you're gonna go with a straightforward approach, trying to talk to somebody?
Oh yeah.
Good. Just give me the basics of your approach. What are you gonna do here?
Yeah, I think so Bastion is dressed, he's got his safety glasses, he's wearing his high vis, he's got his electrician's gloves. And he's gonna walk in like he either owns the place or he's there to maintain it, one of the two. And he's gonna look for whoever seems to know something about the operation here. And he's gonna start asking them questions.
Make the information move with either focus or possibly presence. I'll let you decide. Whatever you think makes the most sense.
I didn't put new stats in it, but I do think presence actually makes sense for this approach.
Okay.
So
Because you're kind of trying to be friendly and trying to
Yeah.
like kind of get them to open up
Affable.
and talk, being affable. Yes, I love it.
Ooh, that's not amazing. That's 6 plus 0 is a 6.
You run into kind of similar trouble from Mercer, maybe a little worse. You know that when you're kind of just like walking up to a group of people and you feel like you just interrupted a conversation because they all go really quiet and look at you? It's like that. You see a group of people wearing coveralls, they clearly work here, having a cigarette or something, engaged in some kind of conversation. And the moment you approach, they all stop, but then they look at you in unison. They turn their heads in unison. They raise their eyes in unison. And they even almost speak in unison, but they get control of themselves and one of them speaks, but they start to speak in unison. But the one that ultimately speaks says, "Can we help you, friend?" Question
Bastion.
for you, Bastion. How can you tell this group of people, whatever this god is, how can you tell this god has taken root directly in this group of people?
I think they're subtle, but if you look at where each of their feet meets the ground, there are holes in the edges and soles of their shoes, and there are fine little wispy viney roots that extend out of them and connect, kind of wire together each of them in series, and also seem to peek out. I think in here, because of the hydroponic systems, there's like all sorts of vines and stuff overflowing from different bays and trays, and I think some of them, like feelers, are twining their ways to wrap around some of those that are being produced.
Now, I would like, before we go any further, for both Mercer and Bastion, I would like to point out that I have posed some danger for both of you in different places here. You both have the option of avoiding that danger by writing a verse, either the verse of history, prophecy, or the special one that's on this assignment. You can do that. It'll bump up your roll, and the thing that I narrated does not happen exactly like that. Or you can just push forward and see how it goes. But I do want to give you that option to think about. You always have that option, but it's maybe particularly salient right now. Sybil, the way I like to imagine this, Sybil, is they all just kind of left you in the van going through your books, and when you look up, they're just not there anymore. So
It happens.
So you're here. The van's getting
By the way,
hot.
I bet this van smells really bad.
It probably smells so terrible. And
with me and the pox monk.
Yeah, but it's probably disgusting. Yeah. But what do you do?
I'm gonna just like take some notes and sort of assemble them together. And I'm gonna I'm gonna go and I guess try and find the others and inform them of what I've found. And then hopefully find out more about this god that's imprisoned here and see if I can line it up to what I've learned.
Well, Theo has a scheme going right now, and Theo's probably closest by because you all did park at the tenements. Theo, please go ahead and tell us your give us the scene when your little sweepstakes idea finally goes off. Theo, what does it look like? What happens here? Gaddock.
Yeah. It looks like that I think the door slowly opens at first, and like I think it's just about to like get shut in my face because like I'm basically wearing a Hawaiian shirt and like white pants, and like my sneakers look a little bit on the rough side, but before it closes, like I stick my shoe into the door and like, listen, we can just talk a little bit because I assume like with everybody being a little bit on the nervous side, I can understand new faces can be a little bit on the scary side, but uh, there you must have some problems with, going on here to be this nervous about stuff, and I just want to help.
The person who opens the door then says, I thought you said there was some kind of contest that we were signing up for.
Yeah. Yes, yes, I do, and I think like I have like in my hand like a clipboard of stuff, and just like could you just sign your name and contact info on this line, please?
And they do this. They sign their name. They are Gail Van Wyck. I shall type that here for you. And if you all want to track this on the assignment sheet, there might be a space to do that. I don't really know. Gail Van Wyck, she's wearing a hippie-ish kind of dress, flower print. You have that in common, with a bunch of pockets. She seems a little distracted, a little starry-eyed. She says, okay, so do I then have to say a prayer? What do we have to do here?
No prayers necessary here. It's just more or less getting everybody's name in a single bowl, and about after a week or so, we're going to perform a ritual and then to draw the names to see who has won the contest for I believe it is and like I flipped through the the multiple pages on the clipboard for a week worth of vacation.
Be quiet. Can you hear it?
Hear what?
It whispers from the soil.
Soil.
It cries to break through the concrete. If you listen, it will share its secrets with you. It gives so freely, and we should do the same. That's where all the problems of the world come from, pure selfishness. I feel somewhat selfish myself, being so focused on your little contest ritual as I am. Selfishness, like those people in the warehouse making that tea. They don't really understand what the gods want. They don't really understand what they have bound there.
No, of course they don't understand. But...
Who's that? And she looks over your shoulder, and you look over, and you probably see Sybil coming up the stairs. I guess, Sybil, what are you doing?
I'm just I'm just gonna be I'm gonna be walking over there, and I'm just gonna be like waving timidly to Theo, and I'm gonna say I found some information, and I'm gonna like trail off as she's like staring at me.
I think Gail Van Wyck says, "Are you here for the contest as well?"
I would say, yeah, I am. I'm an associate of his.
Well, this should be a fantastic ritual if you have so many people here ready to perform it.
Yes, it will be. I hope you win. You seem
I hope
fantastic.
whatever god this is dedicated to favors me. Not that I selfishly want to win. I would never. You should come in. And then she turns and she invites you in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you
Thank
go in?
you.
Yeah, like I go in, but I'm like trying very hard to listen to the beats of silence as between she's speaking, just to see if like I can hear the whispers of the god.
I'm gonna like sort of hover in the doorway. I'm not gonna go into it too far.
I love the way you've described this, Theo, trying to listen to the whispers of the god that she listens to. Let's do the information move with communion.
Yeah, that's the I have a 0 in that, and that's with me adding the +1 for starting roll. So that's
So is just she's rolling that?
Just Theo for now. Yeah.
Yep. That's an 8.
An 8. Okay, good. So you're trying to listen to the whispers. Sybil is hanging back. Let's check. Well, we're going to come back to Mercer and Bastion and find out if they're going to write a verse or if they're going to face this danger. But first, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, we're back. Let's check in with Mercer first. Mercer, this man who's eating worms out of the soil in a prayerful way, he looks at you and says, "Another offering? Are you going to write a verse or are you going to deal with this man?"
So I have an idea for how to lean into this because this is kind of the trawler man's thing. I also have a move, the mouth devouring, or have a condition currently. So I would like to try to outdo him actually, and because I can consume anything without harming my body, I want to find something that's even more disgusting or could be an even better offering, and just to see how he responds.
I love it. Let's read your move. So your move, this is the trawler man's starting move, the mouth devouring. Well, it bounces between the mouth devouring and the mouth returning, yeah. But currently you have the mouth devouring marked. You can consume any object or material, evidence, ritual objects, small creatures, without harm to your body. When you sacrifice something from the land to the water, a piece of technology, a monument, a sign of modern progress, make your next roll with advantage and switch this condition to the mouth returning. So it sounds like you're going to try to consume something in harmony or with or with this man.
Yeah.
I love it. What do you do?
So this is like the alleyway, or maybe if there's some garden, there's some soil.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of what would be. Maybe there's a dead rodent here. I just want to like outdo it. You ate a worm, I'm gonna eat something even worse, or maybe even better.
I think this is going to trigger. Ultimately, this is going to trigger. I think this is probably going to trigger the revelation move, which is slightly different than the veiled move. The revelation move, it's a little more dangerous than the veiled move, and it triggers when basically whenever your risky action involves something connected directly to a god. And this man is clearly, he at least believes he's receiving offerings from whatever this like bound harvest god is here. So I think this is going to be the revelation move. When you do something risky, name what you're afraid will happen if you fail.
I'm afraid that so he's eating this from the soil. I'm just picking something up. There might be traces of who knows what in this soil connected to this warehouse or this other god.
Yeah, and I will now tell you how it's worse than that. It is worse than that because you're going to discover that the dead rat is actually a saint of some god, and it is going to kill you. That's the full stakes. Do you want to go forward with this?
Sure, let's do it.
You're going to roll with communion. Yeah.
Can I, just for fun, can I mark some of my pieces of flesh from my altar to eat that as well?
I love it. How's that going to help you with this?
I'm sort of showing him how serious I am about this ritual. I'm going to like sprinkle some things into the soil, just to kind of like keep the cycle going and then eat this other thing.
I love it. So you're going to get advantage for mark. So as long as you mark that item, you get advantage. And that means you're going to roll 3 dice and take the 2 highest and then add your communion.
All right. So that is a 7.
A 7. On a 7 to 9, you are going to do it, but there is a complication or cost. I will describe what it looks like. The complication or cost is I'm going to give you a condition. The condition is eating roadkill from the street is not a good idea, and you are going to become ill. I'm going to give you like a sickness, an illness. If you're okay with that, actually, you don't have a choice. You must do it because it's the revelation move. So I'm supposed to describe what it looks like, but I actually kind of want you to describe what it looks like. Like, give you the scene where think about it. Think about your scene, how you how you meet this man on his own terms. We're going to come over to Bastion. Bastion, are you going to write a verse to avoid this confrontation, or are you going to go with it?
No, I'm gonna interact with these folks. They seem like nice people.
What can we do for you, friend?
Oh, hello. I'm Bastion Ward. I notice you have a few non-standard appliances here for your operation, and I just wanted to take a closer look.
Are you some sort of inspector from Glottage?
Oh, I'm here on behalf of forces a bit more potent than Glottage itself, but can I just take a look up there?
You're going to have to show us some sort of paperwork. And as they speak, they like finish each other's sentences. They kind of speak in round, you know.
Paperwork. And he's gonna like pat down his vest. And I think he's gonna reach inside and pull out that butane lighter he has. And he's going to go over to one of the plants that they're all kind of connected to, and he's going to hold it to the plant and say, how's this as paperwork?
This is a bold move. Let's do it's the revelation move again, because you're dealing with these people who are being controlled by the by this god, this bound harvest god. Sounds like you're going to mark the butane lighter.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this is going to be with, I'm not going to make it communion. I'm going to make it presence, because you're trying to like intimidate them essentially, right?
Yeah, basically.
Roll advantage.
That's a 5.
Oh, we actually never talked about stakes either. That was my mistake. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
Oh, I mean, I'm afraid they're going to immediately recognize my gambit as a gambit and will retaliate.
It's worse than that. They're going to capture you, and whatever this is going to take root in you. Now, I will give you the option to back out if you want to back out, but otherwise, if you want your roll to stand, you can let it stand, or you can roll again. Since we kind of did it out of order by mistake.
Is there any ability to write a verse on this?
Yeah, you can write a verse to bump it up to a 7, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I'll angle to do.
Okay, it sounds good. I love it. Choose history, prophecy, or you can do the one from this particular.
I'm always fascinated by the specific ones, so I'll take whatever our current one is.
The verse of the inevitable harvest. It can only be marked once. It is now marked, but everybody eventually, before the end of the session, has to describe a hope or dream they have of someday living in abundance with all their needs met. But for now, you have a 7 to 9, which means this is going to work. I do think you are going to take a condition that's suspicious, because I think they're like, well, it's more than that, because you're threatening them, right?
Yeah.
I think I think that it's more than that. It's going to be, I'm going to give you the condition, a threat. Or that's how we'll call it, a threat. But let's just keep the scene going.
Yeah, he extends the butane lighter out, the small but bright flame, inches away from the plant matter.
The one who's their sort of designated representative, the one who speaks the most, says, You certainly drive a hard bargain, friend. Something tells me you aren't lying about representing forces greater than what Glottage can muster.
I was taught to be a skilled negotiator.
Follow us, and they'll take you inside.
I'll follow after them.
As you're going in, they say, "We don't know what your game is, but you've only got a few minutes, and then you're going to be escorted out so that you cannot cause any harm to what we're doing here."
Just a few minutes should be plenty. You got a ladder to get me up there?
And I think they walk over to a wall that's heavily overgrown with thick vines, and they stroke the vines which go up, which climb the wall, and they say, "The god provides."
Is that OSHA
Yeah.
compliant?
Let's cut over to Theo and Sybil. Okay, so Theo, you got an 8 on your information move, correct?
Yes.
And the way you described it is you are trying to listen to the whispers that Gail Van Wyck hears. I like this a lot. I think that's a good approach. Let me find out what you find out. Oh, you just hear. You do indeed hear whispering. Something says, "All things decay, but bring forth new life." That's your clue. All things decay, but bring forth new life. It is also, because you got an 8, it is also a condition I'm going to give you. All things decay. Now, you're a Pox monk, so you probably know that already. But I am curious, Pox monk, when you hear this whisper of all things decay, what part of your body shows that you are decaying, at least while you have this condition?
I think as I'm hearing about this, I think my side begins to hurt, particularly where my tattoo of the prayer mark has been in my skin. And if I took off my shirt, you could see that the flesh of the tattoo is rotting away. This is where I absorb the illnesses of others from. This is how it manifests. But now it rots even faster. It festers. And I think the way that it manifests as it being a problem is that there are maggots crawling in the flesh.
I think Gail Van Wyck sees this and she says, "Oh, you see? The bounty, life flourishing. All you had to do was drop your guard for a moment and receive the divine blessing."
Yes.
Can I interest you in some iced tea or?
Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Dude, literally, as soon as we entered in my head, I was like, she's gonna offer us creepy tea. Like, I just knew it in my heart. But anyway, Sybil is actually
Yeah, so what are you doing?
pretty impressed by the maggot. Actually, can Sybil try and like take one of the maggots for like her own collection?
Of course, yeah. You don't need to roll anything. You can just do it.
Okay, I take one of the maggots. I like put it in my bag.
Yeah. So
Let
I
it
think
crawl around in the books in there.
Gail Van Wyck is pretty clearly distracted with Theo right now. What are you going to do, Sybil?
I'm gonna look around for any more evidence of you know, divine goings on. I also actually you know, Okay, actually, I think I want to ask her about this directly. Um, um, and I'm gonna say, so you know, us, the brethren of the spinning wheel, we you know, do surveys and you know, pick a lucky winner, and we just want to ask you some questions about the verdant mother. So can you tell us about how you feel about this god and anything you know about her?
I'm gonna let you do the information move. I think it's going to be with focus because you are kind of fundamentally lying here. Let me take a look at your. Do you have any conditions right now?
I don't think so.
No, you don't. Okay, go ahead and just roll with 2d6 plus
Plus
focus.
I got a total of 10.
10, nice. We'll come back to this. Mercer, please go ahead and give us the scene.
Mercer sees this fellow sifting through the soil, eating the worm. You know, sees this for what it is, and gets down next to this man and starts also digging through the soil and finds this rat and just says, "The devout never flinch from what must be done," and just kind of weirdly like maintains eye contact. Just like one bite, just kind of chomps down this dead rat. I think there's a moment where maybe out of habit, he starts to say, "Trawler man of Titan flesh, father in the water," and there's no water around, and just kind of maybe just pauses for just a moment and thinks about just the dirt and the soil and the lack of taking this in through the water, but nonetheless eats it.
The man says, "Then you believe as I do, that not only gods must feed, but the faithful must feed in turn. We are all here meant to either consume or be consumed. And you, like me, are a consumer."
The cycle never ends.
No, it does not. It must not. For how can we give offerings to the gods if we are not sated? One cannot do the important work on an empty stomach.
How do we are fed? What is the work? There must be great work happening here.
Yes.
Show me.
Yes, there is. I shall show you. Come. My break is almost over. And he takes you down.
And I have a condition too at some point, right?
Do I owe you a condition?
Yep.
Oh, because I'm just gonna. Yeah, you could just call it. You could like ill. Just like
Oh,
how
sure,
how can you tell this is not a good idea?
I mean, there's a twitch, right? You said it was maybe yeah. It stirs. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just like how can you tell you feel sick? Like, how do you know? Like, oh man, this is not great.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I just I mean, it's not like a nauseous feeling. This is just a weird thing. I think it doesn't sit right in my stomach. This is just eating the dirt thing as opposed to like things in the water. It's a little weird.
I love it. Thank you. Bastion, are you going to climb the roots? You will tell right away.
Absolutely.
Well, not right away. I think you get up just high enough for it to be dangerous when you realize that the roots are alive. This god, these hungering roots of fruitful promise, seems to be aware of you and is not keen on you doing whatever you're doing. I think that the roots are trying to either, well, they're just interfering with your climb. I think this is going to be the revelation move. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
afraid that these roots are going to start pulling from me for their life.
And I have to tell you how it's worse than that. They are going to pull you apart. You are going to be drawn and quartered before the faithful by the roots. Please go ahead. If you want to continue, you're going to roll with vitality.
Okay. I think I'm also, when I feel this pull upon me, I'd like to summon forth the energy of the Maiden of the Caged Sun, of the Saint Electric,
Oh,
and utilize my move, Sacred Conduit.
okay, let's read that. It says, a spark of the saint's power still lives within you. When you channel the divine currents of the Saint Electric, mark a charge box and make your next roll with advantage. Now, I will tell you that's good. However, I do think your condition, a threat, will cancel it out. But you're not at disadvantage at least, so it's just going to be a flat roll.
Okay.
But I love it. With vitality, go for it.
I cannot roll well today. That is a 4 on the dice, plus 1, 5.
I think this will be our final scene for the session. We see you climbing up. You get not just an unsafe height up the building, you get to a height where it's almost like you are on display. You are being showed to the faithful. They are here to witness the power of the hungering roots. Indeed, as you're climbing up, and you can feel the quivering of the vines, as you're climbing up, you can see more of the workers have gathered in this little kind of entry plaza. They're looking up at you. And before you can do anything else, the thick roots and vines have wrapped around your wrists and your ankles, and they have removed you from the wall and indeed are pressing out above the crowd. And you're struggling, you're trying to get free, but the roots are too powerful. And the one worker has a smile on his face. Your butane lighter falls down and he catches it. And the one worker says, "Let us now all dance in the nourishing rain." And the roots pull you apart. We hear the pop of bone from the sockets. We hear the tearing of flesh as your limbs are ripped apart, as your blood sprays like a wild midair sprinkler system dribbling down onto the faithful. Let's progress to the end of session. Now, before we end our session, a couple of things. I think we have a little checklist of things to get done here. I need to go pull it up real fast. Here we go. Maybe. End of session. We would collect rewards if an assignment was resolved, but it's not yet, so we don't worry about that. And now we will answer end of session questions. So let's take a look at our end of session questions. And we didn't get much time to play, so it's okay if you didn't really hit many of these, but we'll see anyway. Let's go in order of the sheet. So Sybil Kumar. Okay, so the first two is the same for everyone. Did the custodians complete an assignment, and did you engage with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation? No one's getting the first one yet, but Sybil, do you think you engaged with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation?
No.
Theo, did you engage with a god, angel, or other divine manifestation?
I would say so. There's maggots crawling out of my flesh. So.
Oh yeah, and the whispering too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bastion, you definitely engaged with a god, so you credit for that
Good
one.
progress.
And Mercer, you kind of did. What do you think, Mercer?
I think it was implied that eating the rat, there'd be a saint or something that might be What was bad
Except it
about
wasn't
that?
though. That was the
Oh,
that
it
was
wasn't.
that was the like if it
Oh, heard.
you
Yeah, gotcha.
failed. Yeah.
I tried to. I don't know if it was fully yet.
I don't know if we're quite there yet. Yeah,
Okay.
no, not quite. Let's go over to now. We'll do the individual questions. Sybil, did you undermine the orders of your superiors or use the assignment to pursue personal interests? I would say you did because you were like gathering things that have nothing to do with the assignment for your collection. So you can mark
Yeah,
that one.
I took some. I got some maggots. I got
Yeah,
a book. So
absolutely. Did you go out of your way to connect with the local community?
me?
Yeah, the book probably, right?
Yeah. Well, I was also talking to the lady.
Yeah, I think the one that's most salient is like when you took the book and put another one in its place
Yeah.
in the little box. So yeah, you get those two. Let's
Yeah.
go
By
to
the way, the book I took was like a self-help book
oh, nice.
about like how to worship like this weird like self-help god to improve your life.
I love it. I love it. Theo, did you deliver a monologue about any of the following? The nature
No.
of gods, the futility of individual choices, et cetera, et cetera. No. Did you go out of your way to connect with the local community? I would say you did.
Yeah, I'm going to have tea with this lady.
Yeah, and you also were literally trying to connect with the local community by knocking doors. Bastion, did you go out of your way to connect?
Exactly.
Not exactly.
I started off nice, but when I realized that stuff was going on, it sort of flipped pretty quick. So,
did you deliver a monologue about any of the following? The nature of gods, the futility of individual choices in the face of indifferent powers, the horrors the society accepts as good and necessary.
not today.
Not today. Let's go over to Mercer. Did you undermine the orders of your superiors or use the assignment to pursue your personal interests?
I don't think so yet. I'm trying to, but I don't think I've had the opportunity to really do it.
Did you struggle with your personal faith? I would say so because I
was
don't think
going for it. Yeah.
I don't think the Trawlerman wants you eating rats,
Right.
Especially to like for this like weird like you're almost like making a mockery of the Trawlerman, right? In order to get this situation accomplished.
Yeah,
or sort
inferior
It's kind
offerings.
of iconic of you, though.
I think so too. I agree. All right. So for every box that you marked, go ahead and mark your XP track an equal number of boxes. And let's go to the next step here, which is now if you wish, you can mark new end of session questions, or you can just leave them the same. It doesn't matter. Or either mark one or the other, or leave them both. Do we have any moves that resolve at the end of the session? I don't think we do. In that case, everyone has to narrate the verse of whatever it's called.
The inevitable harvest.
The verse of the inevitable harvest. Each custodian describes a hope or dream they have of someday living in abundance with all their needs met. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
I think Theo, while they were traveling, like I think they had to pull over to the side of the road at one point just to get so everybody can just get some rest, some sleep in a van, because like I imagine like I think it's just like a debate of like who gets to drive and should they drive while people are very tired, like in the very early like morning, and like think like there's a set time when everybody they aren't driving whatsoever. I think while Theo is dreaming, he dreams that he's in this luxurious bed. It's white and fluffy, and like he's there just resting, and it's just so comfortable. I think he just rubs along his side, and there is no mark on him. It's just smooth flesh.
Thank you.
I think Bastion's dream is simple. We see a sizable bathroom. It's got like a tub that takes up the center of the space. Steam is rising from the hot water. Naked, kind of chest up, showing is Bastion, face back, leaning down in the tub. He's got a towel over his face, his eyes covered, And off to the side, there is a chair which just has folded up neatly his vest, his gloves, his safety equipment. And as like the steam fills the room, Bastian just breathes a big sigh of relief.
So does it have to be like a literal dream?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. So when Sybil comes to like the free library, they imagine like having their own like huge like book collection and just like distributing them to people and spreading the waxen scrivener everywhere, and but most of all just like being surrounded by like a ton of books all the time.
Mercer once saw an ad for a small island that was for sale, like an old decommissioned lighthouse, and has thought about that since. If he could just manage to have his own place like that and just be left the hell alone, no ads for other gods, no tax collectors coming, he could just live on the water, take from the water, give back to the water, in his own way.
Fantastic. And with all that said, we'll go to Stars and Wishes. Stars and Wishes is our debrief technique. Basically, everyone gets to say stars, the things that you enjoyed, either something about the game, something about the scenes or the story, something that one of your fellow players did, something that I did. And then you can say as many as you wish. And then wishes are things that you hope to see next week when we play or just in the future. And so I was going to go first, but I think I'll wait. Who wants to go first?
I can jump in to say stars to getting to play. Spent a lot of time on the writing side of this. I've got to play test it a bit, but it's really fun to just play and experience it from that side. I really liked the moments where our different characters leaned in, where Mercer and Bastian both had chances where they could have backed out, but that's what it's all about, is facing the horror. And I thought the other moments with Theo and Sybil were really fun as well, with the Brethren of the Spinning Wheel. Excellent. Inventing a new god. I would add that to wishes too, is just seeing the setting is really, really cool, and it's wide open for, there's supposed to be thousands and thousands of gods, so I'm curious if we invent new ones on the way. Beyond that, just wishes to see the journey scenes, just see the other parts of the game and see how we fill out the world as we go.
I'll go this time. I had a really good time. This is the first time I've run it. Fortunately, I have a good enough handle on the underlying system to have gotten through it. But and I was running it with imperfect documents, because they're just Google Docs right now. We don't have laid out documents, and so that was a bit of a challenge. But I still was pretty happy with how it went, and I was happy with how I ran it. So star for the materials and for me, I guess. Individual stars for you all. I absolutely love Brethren of the Spinning Wheel. That was so well timed and really funny. And I think it was perfect for the moment and the setting. It was really, really good. I really appreciated how both Gabriel and David leaned into the danger rather than immediately writing a verse. If you would have written a verse right away, I would have been into that too, but it was still fun to kind of see you deal with the adversity. I really enjoyed that. And those were great scenes. Quite good. Chaotic, I loved the sweepstakes approach to trying to get people to open up, because I feel like it's a great move, because there's a certain type of person who answers the door to that person, right? like people still wouldn't answer the door, but there is the certain type of person who will, and I think Gail Van Wyck is one such person. But I thought it was really clever, really good move. So I really, really enjoyed that, and for everybody, I'm really kind of enjoying the, we haven't seen too much of these characters and how they interact with each other yet, because we haven't done the journey phase yet. But that's one of my wishes. We'll do the journey phase and we'll get to really see these characters like bond together. But at the outset, though, with a little bit of time we had, it was really fun to see everybody kind of how they handle problems, how they approach things, like what their approach is. They're quite different approaches between all four characters, which I think is intriguing. And yeah, and everyone did a really good job of, especially folks who are maybe not so steeped in the setting. In this case, probably it's David and Chaotic, did a really good job, nevertheless, of like figuring out your place in the setting and kind of what it all means and how to work with it. So just a really great job there. And yeah, it was really, really fun. Yeah, my only wish is just I'm excited to see the journey phase. So.
Yeah, so I really liked this creepy god. I think it's great, and like to encounter its like weird like followers, and I thought that was very cool. As for wishes, I would just really like to get into the backstories of everybody's characters eventually. And I think it's cool that it's kind of a mystery, but I'm also excited to learn about everybody and learn about my own character too.
Yeah, and that's part of everyone's homework too. Your homework assignment is to read your verse of history and your verse of prophecy, and start thinking about your character. Start thinking about those hard questions and kind of what it means, because you will eventually be called upon to talk about those things. So, so be thinking about them.
I gotta give a star for you, Jason, for running this system for the first time. It is a card from Brindwood game, but like I can tell how different it is from a very early outset of like how it's supposed to be presented and how things are supposed to be interpreted and like how these PCs fit within the world. It feels very distinct, and like this like typically the very early sessions are what I would call like tourist sessions of like we're just exploring how things work and how things interact, and like it's just we go at our own pace, and it feels very comfortable, and like nothing's getting rushed so far, so I really like the pacing. I gotta give a star for Sybil for how much you're ready to get engaged with things and like show off your character already, even though this is a system you have very little experience with, and I'm very excited to see like how you are in the system when you do gain that familiarity. Uh, Gabriel and David, I really liked how you engaged with like the terrors of like the god, and like how very different your approaches were of like, okay, Bastion is almost a little bit on the antagonistic side towards like the followers, but like Mercer's like, oh yeah, you're just like me, let me eat this rat and let's worship together.
Well, and also, if I can
Yeah.
interject, that those two kind of scenes were really terrific, like bookends of each other, because it was very like, here's how a follower of the Trawler Man deals with the situation, and here's how a follower of the Saint Electric deals with the situation, and I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
slightly lapsed followers, we should say, but yeah.
Yeah. Wishes. I want to remember my character's name better in the future, so like I can be a little bit more snappy in my responses, because I like
I knew
Jason,
that's what it was. I knew that's what it was. I was like, he's just not used to being called Theo. That's all.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to both the journey move and as well as my own move, because I don't really gain the benefits of a journey move when I'm in the scene. Like I have like different things, and especially since Mercer did take up ill as a condition, I can affect that with my move because it's a complicated move. Also, another wish is more of a question. How does the trawler move work? Because like that gives a condition, I think. I'm not sure.
I don't think we 100% decided that in edits yet, as far
Yeah,
as
that's
like
not edited
it's a
yet,
permanent
so.
condition. So
Okay.
if it counts against your 3 or not,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's probably just a little hinky thing that will get handled in edit. So yeah.
Okay.
David.
Yeah. I mean, first star. I think this is a lot of fun. All the DNA of the between that I already like know and am familiar with makes it like that much more approachable. But the differences in the setting, I think, are immediately apparent. And with the playbooks as well. When I was just reading through them and reading through some of the moves, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. I like how this guides the role play. This will be really interesting. Another star, I feel like I would just be treading ground going over everything that the players did, especially in an episode this short. But I just really like how everyone is engaging with the setting already. I'm really curious to see where each of these stories, splinters off to as we get deeper into this situation. And I start to Jason as well for it being your first time running the game. I would not have guessed, and I'm sure that's rooted, of course, in a lot of experience with the underlying systems, but also I think you did a fantastic job. Wishes, I would I would like to see how I end up resolving the situation. I think I'm definitely going to be writing a verse next time.
You're gonna have to write a verse, right?
Yeah, there's no. Although one of the things I love about the Between and just the Car from Brindlewood aesthetic is us getting to have that scene anyway. Even we're gonna probably write a verse about this, but like being turned into a blood sprinkler for the followers is always a joy. And I think my biggest wish is I want to explore more of Bastion's connection with the Saint Electric. I have like a few ideas I'm nursing, but I want to see how that plays out as we get deeper into the campaign.
Fantastic. Are there any more stars and wishes? Okay. We're just a couple of minutes over time, but if you will just entertain me or not entertain me, what's the word I'm looking for? Humor me.
Indulge. Yeah.
Indulge me. Thank you. A sort of end of credits scene, though it's not at the end of the story, it's actually at the beginning. We see your white van driving towards this little township outside of Glottage, and that's all fine. What you all aren't aware of is the big brown sedan following you a few cars back, and indeed who has been following you for probably the last day or two. We see the van pull up. We see everyone get out, leaving Sybil in the van, but everyone gets out and goes their separate ways. And that brown car pulls up, but doesn't park near the van. It parks a little ways down. And a man gets out, a man wearing a fussy plaid shirt and high-waisted khaki pants, big, thick bifocals, and a clipboard. He's got a clipboard in his hand. And he's trying to be like sneaky. He's like looking to see if anyone sees him. And he walks over to the van and he's clearly like taking down information. Your license plate, different, things like that. He's coming around the side and almost runs into Sybil. Sybil's coming out and he like jumps back like, oh, so that Sybil doesn't see him. And then he waits for Sybil to go up and he's making some notes. Makes some notes about Theo, and he's got your names written down. Theo Solomon, Mercer Oaks, Bastion Ward, Sybil Kumar. Little list. While Mercer's eating a rat, he's looking around the corner and he's like, ugh. And he makes a note. And he goes to Bastion. And while what's happening to Bastion happens, he's like, and crosses Bastion's name off the list. And then we flash forward to this same man sitting in a cold, metallic room. We don't know where he is, but there's a flickering white sodium light overhead. And this man is on the phone and he says, yes, I would definitely give the the three of them, that categorization. Potential investments. I like that. Potential investments. Is that a new term we're using at the Institute? Right. No, it's a silly question. I'm sorry. I know. All right, then. Duly noted. I shall continue gathering information. And might I say, I really quite enjoyed that cocktail party you threw. Oh, they're gone. Okay. And they hang up. And that will conclude our session. I will see you all next week.